If you touch me again, I swear to God I'll kill you. Emily Carter's voice cracked as she screamed those words, her fist still throbbing from connecting with her stepfather's jaw. Blood dripped from her knuckles onto the kitchen floor of the Nevada trailer she'd called hell for 8 years. She was 19, blonde and terrified, but for the first time in her life, she'd fought back. Now she had maybe an hour before he woke up, and when he did, he would absolutely kill her. Before we continue Emily's story, please subscribe to our channel and stay until the very end to see how this desperate moment transforms into something nobody could predict. Comment below which city you are watching it from. I want to see how far Emily's story travels. Emily's hands shook violently as she shoved clothes into a backpack that had seen better days. Her left eye was already swelling shut, and her ribs screamed every time she took a breath. Behind her, somewhere in the wreckage of overturned furniture and shattered dishes, her stepfather Ray groaned. She'd hit him with the cast iron skillet her real father had given her mother 20 years ago. The same father who died when Emily was 11. The same father who'd taught her that motorcycles were freedom and wrenches were magic wands. "You stupid little—" Ray's voice was thick with blood and rage. Emily didn't wait to hear the rest. She grabbed the backpack, her father's old tool roll, and ran. The Nevada sun hit her like a physical slap when she burst through the trailer door. It was 114 degrees in the shade, and there wasn't any shade for miles. The nearest town was Oakland, population 847, and everybody there knew Ray Carter. Everybody there would call him the second they saw her. She needed wheels. She needed them now. Her pockets held exactly $55 in crumpled bills and loose change. Everything she'd managed to hide from Ray over 6 months of working nights at the truck stop diner. It wasn't enough for a bus ticket to anywhere that mattered. It wasn't enough for a motel room. It was barely enough for gas. But maybe, just maybe, it was enough for something with an engine. Emily's boots kicked up dust as she ran down the unpaved road, her backpack slamming against her spine with every step. The sound of Ray's pickup truck roaring to life behind the trailer sent ice through her veins despite the murderous heat. He was up. He was coming. And he was absolutely going to kill her this time. Think, she whispered to herself, her lungs burning. Where can I go? What can I do? Then she remembered something. Old Man Tucker's salvage yard sat about 2 miles east, a sprawling graveyard of dead vehicles that nobody visited anymore. Tucker had a reputation for being mean as a snake, but he also had a reputation for not asking questions. And if the rumors were true, he had motorcycles. Emily cut across the desert scrubbed land, ignoring the thorns ripping at her jeans and the rocks trying to twist her ankles. Behind her, she could hear Ray's truck getting closer, his engine growling like a predator. She ducked behind a cluster of Joshua trees just as his pickup roared past on the main road, dust billowing behind it like a brown tidal wave. Please don't see me. Please don't see me. Please. The truck kept going toward town. Ray thought she'd run to the bus station. He thought she'd try to get help from someone. He didn't know her at all. Nobody did. That was the only advantage she had left. Tucker's salvage sprawled across 5 acres of sun-scorched Nevada wasteland like a metal cemetery. Hundreds of vehicles in various states of decay sat baking in the heat, cars without engines, trucks without wheels, motorcycles without hope. A hand-painted sign hung crooked over the entrance, Tucker's We Buy Anything That Died. The office was a tin shack that looked like it would blow away in a strong wind. Emily pushed through the door, and the blast of heat from inside was somehow worse than the heat outside. No air conditioning, just a ceiling fan that spun slowly enough to count the rotations. Behind a desk made from a truck hood sat a man who looked like he'd been carved from beef jerky. Tucker was maybe 70, maybe 100, it was impossible to tell. His face was nothing but wrinkles and sun damage, and his eyes were the cold blue of winter ice. "We're closed," he said without looking up from whatever he was reading. "I need to buy something." Emily's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "Closed means closed. Come back tomorrow." "I can't come back tomorrow. Please, I need—" "What you need is to get the hell out of my office before I call." Tucker looked up for the first time and stopped mid-sentence. His eyes took in her swollen face, the blood on her sleeve, the desperate terror she couldn't hide. "Jesus Christ, girl. Who did that to you?" Emily's jaw tightened. "Nobody. I fell." "Uh-huh. And I'm the Queen of England." Tucker leaned back in his chair, which squealed in protest. "Let me guess. Boyfriend, husband, stepfather." Ah, yeah, I've seen that look before. Tucker was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable. So you came here looking for what exactly? A place to hide? A motorcycle. Anything that runs, I have $55. Tucker actually laughed at that, a harsh barking sound. $55, girl, I don't have anything in this yard worth $55. Everything here is dead or dying. Then sell me something dead. I'll make it run. Tucker's laugh got louder. No offense, sweetheart, but you look like you can barely stand up, let alone rebuild a motorcycle. Emily dropped her father's tool roll onto the desk with a heavy thunk. The leather was old and cracked, but the tools inside were pristine wrenches, sockets, screwdrivers, all carefully maintained. My father was a mechanic. He worked on Harleys for 20 years before he died. He taught me everything. Tucker picked up one of the wrenches, examining it. Your daddy taught you good, I'll give you that. These tools are loved, but knowing tools and knowing engines are two different things. Then test me. Show me the worst motorcycle you've got, and I'll tell you what's wrong with it. Something shifted in Tucker's expression. You're serious. Dead serious, please. Emily's voice cracked again. He's going to kill me if he finds me. I need to disappear. I need wheels. Tucker studied her for what felt like an eternity. Then he sighed, pushed himself up from his chair with a grunt, and grabbed a ring of keys. Come on, I'll show you something. But I'm telling you right now, $55 ain't buying you nothing that it's going to get you more than 5 miles down the road. 5 miles is better than 0. They walked through the salvage yard, weaving between rusted husks and sun-bleached metal. The heat was oppressive, shimmering off every surface. Emily's head swam, and she realized she hadn't eaten since yesterday. But she forced herself to keep walking, to keep looking strong. Tucker led her to the far back corner of the yard where a torn tarp covered something large and angular. Been here about 6 years, he said. Owner died. Nobody claimed it'd been sitting under this tarp ever since. I was going to scrap it for parts last year, but I never got around to it. He pulled the tarp away and Emily's breath caught. It was a 1978 Harley Davidson shovelhead, and it looked like it had spent those 6 years at the bottom of a lake. Rust covered nearly every surface. The chrome was pitted and brown. The seat was ripped to shreds. The tires were flat and cracked. The tank was dented in 3 places. Even the engine cases were corroded. It was the most beautiful thing Emily had ever seen. This is it, she whispered. This is the one. Tucker stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Girl, this bike ain't seen oil in half a decade. The engine's probably seized solid. The wiring's been chewed by rats. The tank's probably full of rust flakes. This ain't a motorcycle. This is a paperweight. Emily walked around the Harley slowly, her mechanic's eye cataloging every problem. Seized engine, destroyed carburetor, blown fork seals, rusted chain, dead battery, missing spark plugs. The list went on and on. Any sane person would walk away. Any sane person would see this as exactly what Tucker said, a paperweight. But Emily wasn't looking for sanity. She was looking for freedom. My dad had a shovel head, she said quietly. 1976, black and chrome. He used to let me sit on it when I was little. Said these engines were bulletproof if you treated them right. Said they could come back from the dead if you believed hard enough. Tucker shook his head. That's poetry, not mechanics. How much? For this? Hell, I'll take your $55 just to get it off my property. But you're wasting your money, girl. This thing will never run again. Then you won't mind if I try. Something in Tucker's expression softened slightly. You got a place to work on it? Right here, if you'll let me. And when your stepfather comes looking for you, Emily met his eyes directly. Then I'll be gone before he gets here. Tucker was quiet for a long moment. Then he spat into the dirt. All right, here's the deal. You can work on it in that empty bay behind the office. I've got some tools you can use, and there's parts all over this yard you can scavenge. But you're on your own, understand I ain't getting involved in family business. And if that bike ain't running in 3 days, you're out of here. 3 days? That's generous, and you know it. Most people would give you 3 hours. Tucker held out his hand. $55. Emily counted out the money with shaking hands, 2 20s, a 10 and 5 ones in various conditions. It was literally everything she had in the world. Tucker took the cash, folded it, and shoved it in his pocket. Congratulations, he said without enthusiasm. You just bought the world's most expensive pile of rust. Emily looked at the Harley again. really looked at it. Under all that rust and decay, she could see the bones of something magnificent. A shovelhead engine, a rigid frame, the DNA of a machine built to devour highways and spit out freedom. No, she said quietly. I just bought my way out of hell. Tucker walked away, shaking his head, muttering something about stubborn girls and wasted money. Emily waited until he was gone, then knelt beside the Harley. She placed both hands on the rusted tank, feeling the metal warm from the sun. You and me, she whispered to the dead machine. We're both broken. We're both thrown away. We're both supposed to be finished. But we're not. We're going to prove them all wrong. The Harley, of course, said nothing. But somewhere deep in Emily's chest, something that had been dead for a very long time flickered back to life. Hope. She pulled her father's tool roll open and got to work. The work was brutal from the first minute. Emily dragged the Harley into the empty bay Tucker had mentioned, a tin-roof space that was barely big enough for the bike and her. The heat inside was like being in an oven. Within 10 minutes, she was soaked with sweat. Within 20, she was seeing spots. But she kept working. First priority, see if the engine would even turn over by hand. Emily removed the spark plugs and shot penetrating oil into each cylinder. Then she attached a wrench to the engine's output shaft and pushed. The engine didn't budge. It was seized absolutely solid. Come on, she growled, pushing harder. Move, just a little. Give me something. Nothing. Emily rested her forehead against the tank, breathing hard. Her ribs were screaming. Her eye was swollen completely shut now. Every part of her hurt, and the engine wouldn't even rotate 1 degree. This is impossible, she said to herself. This is absolutely impossible. Then she heard her father's voice in her memory clear as day. Emily girl, there's no such thing as impossible. There's just ain't figured it out yet. She opened her eyes. All right, Dan, she whispered. What would you do? The answer came immediately, heat and leverage. Emily spent the next hour using Tucker's cutting torch to heat the cylinders, cycling between heat and penetrating oil. Heat and oil, heat and oil. The metal glowed cherry red. The oil smoked. Her arms shook from exhaustion. But slowly and possibly, she felt the engine begin to give. That's it, she whispered. Come on, baby. Come back to me. With one final heave on the wrench, something inside the engine shifted. Just a fraction of an inch, but it moved. Emily actually shouted in triumph, her voice echoing through the tin building. Tucker appeared in the doorway, looking suspicious. What's all the noise? It moved. The engine moved. Moving and running are two different things, Tucker said, but there was something almost like approval in his voice. You got a long way to go, girl. I know, but it's progress. Tucker disappeared again. Emily kept working. By the time the sun began to set, Emily had managed to rotate the engine a full revolution by hand. It was rough grinding, obviously damaged inside, but it moved. That meant it could be rebuilt. That meant there was hope. She was elbow deep in the engine, trying to remove the primary cover, when headlights suddenly swept across the salvage yard. Emily's heart stopped. She killed the work light and pressed herself against the wall of the bay, watching through a gap in the tin. A pickup truck rolled slowly through the yard. Ray's pickup. Tucker! Ray's voice boomed across the salvage yard. Get out here! Emily's entire body went cold. He'd found her. Somehow he'd figured it out. Tucker emerged from his office, moving slowly. Yard's closed. I'm looking for a girl. Blonde, 19, about 5'6". She ran away this morning and I think she came through here. Don't know what you're talking about. Don't give me that crap. This is the only place within walking distance. Ray's voice was getting angrier. She's my stepdaughter. She's sick in the head. Needs her medication. I'm worried about her. Emily almost laughed at the brazen lie. Sick in the head. That was his story. Tucker was quiet for a moment. Even if I had seen a girl matching that description, which I haven't, I ain't in the habit of helping men who put bruises on women. The temperature in the conversation dropped about 50 degrees. You calling me a liar? Ray's voice was dangerous now. I'm calling you exactly what you are. Now get the hell off my property before I call the sheriff. The sheriff's my cousin. Then I'll call the state police. Go on, get. For a terrifying moment, Emily thought Ray was going to get violent. She could see his silhouette tensing, ready to explode. But Tucker apparently had a reputation that even Ray respected, because after a long, ugly pause, Ray climbed back into his truck. She's gonna come back eventually, oui. Ray called out. And when she does, I'll be waiting. You tell her that if you see her. The truck rumbled away, leaving dust and silence. Emily realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly, her whole body shaking. Tucker stood in the yard for a minute longer, then walked over to the bay. He's gone, Tucker said quietly. For now. Thank you. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did. I got 3 daughters of my own. All grown now, all got out of this hell state. But I remember what it was like worrying about them. Tucker paused. You really gonna get this bike running in 3 days? I'm going to get it running in 2, Emily said, because on day 3, I'm gone. Tucker nodded slowly. There's a cot in the office. It ain't much, but it's better than sleeping on the floor in here. And there's food in the mini fridge. Help yourself. I can't pay you. Didn't ask you to. Now get some sleep. You look like death warmed over. Tucker walked away before Emily could say anything else. She stood in the dark bay for a long time looking at the rusted Harley. Then she whispered, Did you hear that? We've got 2 days to come back from the dead. Both of us. Think we can do it. The Harley, covered in rust and broken dreams, sat silent in the shadows. But Emily could have sworn she felt something, a promise maybe, or a challenge. Either way, she got back to work. By midnight, Emily had the engine completely torn down, every component laid out on a tarp like mechanical organs waiting for transplant. The cylinders were scored but usable. The pistons were seized but could be freed. The valves were stuck but could be cleaned. Everything was damaged, but nothing was beyond saving, just like her. She fell asleep sometime around 2 a.m., her head resting on her father's tool roll, her hands black with oil, her body screaming in pain. And for the first time in 8 years, Emily Carter slept without nightmares. Because for the first time in 8 years, she had something to believe in, a rusted Harley Davidson that refused to stay dead, and herself. Emily woke to the sound of metal scraping against concrete. Her body jerked upright on the cot, every muscle screaming in protest. The clock on Tucker's wall read 5:47 a.m. She'd slept less than 4 hours, but her mind was already racing through the rebuild sequence. Cylinders, pistons, valves, timing. She had maybe 36 hours left. You're up early, Tucker said from the doorway. He was holding 2 cups of coffee that looked like they'd been brewed sometime during the Reagan administration. Can't afford to sleep. Emily took the coffee gratefully. It tasted like battery acid, but it was hot and caffeinated. I need to hone the cylinders today. Do you have a hone? Might? What size? 3.5 inches? Tucker scratched his chin. Check the red toolbox in Bay 3. If it's anywhere, it's there. And Emily, that stepfather of yours, he came back last night around 3 a.m., drove through real slow with his lights off. Thought you should know. Emily's hand tightened around the coffee cup. He's hunting me. Yeah, and he ain't gonna stop. Tucker's voice was flat. Question is, can you get that bike running before he finds you in here? Watch me. She was back at the Harley within minutes, her hands already moving through the familiar motions her father had taught her. The cylinders needed to be honed smooth to give the new piston rings a proper seating surface. It was delicate work, and one mistake would ruin everything. Her hands were steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. The hone made a distinctive grinding sound as it worked metal on metal, smoothing out the damage from 6 years of sitting dead. Emily worked with absolute focus, checking and rechecking her measurements. 0.003 of an inch. That's all she had to work with. Too much, and the pistons would be loose. Too little, and they'd seize again. Come on, she whispered to herself. Perfect. It has to be perfect. She was so focused on the work that she didn't hear the footsteps until they were right behind her. Well, look at this. Emily spun around, wrench in hand, ready to fight. But it wasn't Ray. It was a kid maybe 17 with shaggy brown hair and grease under his fingernails. He was staring at the torn-apart Harley with something like awe. Jesus Christ, is that a shovel head? A 78? The kid moved closer, examining the engine components. Where'd you find this? Tucker sold it to me. Who are you? Oh, I am. Danny, I work here part-time. Tucker called me in to help with a truck repair, but Danny picked up one of the pistons, turning it in the light. Man, these are trashed. You're replacing these, right? Can't afford new ones. I'm going to clean them up and re-ring them. Danny laughed. Oh, that's insane. These pistons have been seized for years. The ring grooves are probably destroyed. Probably, but it's what I've got. Emily took the piston back from him, her voice sharp. And I've got 35 hours to make it work, so if you're just here to tell me everything that's wrong, you can leave. Whoa, easy. Danny held up his hands. I was actually going to say I've got a set of pistons from a '79 shovelhead in my garage at home. They'll fit. You can have them. Emily stopped staring at him. Why would you do that? Because I like seeing dead bikes come back to life. And because Danny paused, noticing her swollen face for the first time. His expression changed. Because you look like you need a win. Something in Emily's chest cracked slightly. I can't pay you. Don't want your money. Just promise me one thing. When this thing fires up, I get to hear it. Emily managed a small smile. Deal. Danny left and came back 90 minutes later with a box of parts that made Emily want to cry with relief. The pistons were used but in good shape. There were new rings, new gaskets, even a rebuilt carburetor. Danny, this is too much. My dad died 2 years ago, Danny said quietly. He was building a shovelhead when he had his heart attack. Never finished it. These parts have just been sitting in my garage, and my mom keeps asking me to throw them out, but I couldn't. Felt wrong. He met her eyes. Maybe they were waiting for this. For you. Emily nodded, unable to speak. Danny stayed and helped her work. He was good, really good. His hands knew engines the way hers did, moving with confidence and precision. Together, they got the pistons installed by noon. Tucker appeared with sandwiches that tasted like cardboard, but Emily ate anyway. She couldn't remember the last time food had touched her stomach. You're making progress, Tucker observed. Not fast enough. I still need to rebuild the carburetor, replace all the gaskets, check the timing, rewire the entire electrical system, and pray the transmission isn't completely destroyed. That's at least 2 more days of work, Danny said. I've got 1 day. Less than that, actually. Emily wiped sweat from her forehead. Ray's not stupid. He's going to figure out I'm here eventually. Probably already has. He's just waiting for the right moment. Then we work faster, Danny said simply. They worked through the afternoon heat, their hands moving in synchronized chaos. Emily rebuilt the carburetor while Danny traced the wiring harness, replacing corroded connections. Tucker brought them water and occasionally grunted approval at their progress. By 6 p.m., the engine was back together. It looked almost nothing like the rusted mess from yesterday. The cylinders were honed smooth. The pistons were installed with fresh rings. The valves were adjusted. The carburetor was rebuilt and mounted. It was starting to look like a real motorcycle again. Now comes the moment of truth, Danny said. Compression test. Emily threaded the compression tester into the first cylinder and kicked the engine through several rotations. The gauge needle climbed. 90 pounds, 100, 120, 140. It stopped at 145 pounds per square inch. That's good, Danny said. Really good. Check the others. All 4 cylinders tested within 5 pounds of each other. The engine had compression. It had sealing. It could theoretically run. We might actually pull this off, Emily whispered. That's when they heard the sirens. 2 sheriff's vehicles pulled into Tucker's salvage yard, lights flashing. Emily's blood turned to ice. She looked at Tucker, who was already walking toward them. Stay here, Tucker said. Don't make a sound. Emily and Danny crouched behind the Harley, watching through the gap in the tin walls. 2 deputies got out of their vehicles, and Emily's worst fear materialized. One of them was Ray's cousin, Deputy Marcus Carter. Tucker, we need to talk, Marcus called out. About what? About the runaway girl you're hiding, Emily Carter. Her stepfather filed a missing persons report. Says she's mentally unstable and might hurt herself. Tucker spat into the dirt. And you believe that load of horse manure? Doesn't matter what I believe. Matters what the law says. If she's here, you need to hand her over. She ain't here. Then you won't mind if we take a look around. Actually, I would mind. You got a warrant, Marcus's expression hardened. Don't make this difficult, old man. I ain't making nothing difficult. I'm standing on my property, exercising my rights. You want to search my salvage yard, you bring me a warrant. Until then, get the hell out. The 2 deputies exchanged looks. Then Marcus smiled, and it was the ugliest thing Emily had ever seen. Fine. We'll be back with that warrant within the hour, and when we come back, Tucker, we're going to search every inch of this place. And if we find out you've been hiding her, you're going to jail for obstruction. That clear enough for you? Crystal. The deputies left, but Emily knew they weren't gone. They were just waiting, setting up, making sure she couldn't escape. We're out of time, Emily said, her voice shaking. They're coming back. Can the bike run? Tucker asked. Not yet. It needs fuel, battery, spark plugs. It's still at least 4 hours of work. Then you got 4 hours. Tucker's voice was firm. Danny, go home. Your mama doesn't need you getting caught up in this. I'm not leaving, Danny said stubbornly. Boy, my dad taught me that you don't abandon people in the middle of a G. Emily needs help, and I'm helping. End of story. Tucker looked like he wanted to argue, but he just shook his head. All right, then we all work. Fast. What happened next was the most intense 4 hours of Emily's life. She worked on the fuel system while Danny handled the electrical, and Tucker scavenged parts from other bikes in the yard. They moved like a pit crew, nobody wasting a single motion. Emily's hands were bleeding from cut wires and sharp metal, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Every sound made her jump, expecting to see Ray or the deputies bursting through the door. The fuel tank was full of rust particles that would clog the carburetor in seconds. Emily had to flush it 3 times before the fuel ran clean. The petcock was corroded shut. The fuel lines were cracked. Everything took twice as long as it should have. Come on, come on, come on, she chanted under her breath. Batteries connected, Danny called out. Testing the electrical. He hit the kill switch and miraculously lights came on. The headlight flickered weakly, but it worked. The taillight glowed red. The electrical system was alive. Oh my God, Emily breathed. We might actually do this. Don't celebrate yet, Tucker said. You still need spark. Emily installed the spark plugs, old ones from Tucker's parts bin, but they'd have to do. She connected the plug wires, double-checking the firing order. 1342, her father's voice in her head. Get the firing order wrong and you get nothing but backfires and broken dreams. Okay, she said, her voice barely steady. It's ready. Everything's connected. Battery, fuel, spark. It should run. Should is a dangerous word, Tucker said. Only one way to find out. Emily stood next to the Harley, her hand on the Kickstarter. This was the moment. Everything came down to this. 2 days of work, years of pain, a lifetime of running, all of it focused on this one kick. She looked at Danny and Tucker. If this doesn't work, it'll work, Danny said with more confidence than she felt. Emily took a deep breath, said a prayer to her dead father, and kicked. Nothing. She kicked again. The engine turned over, but didn't fire. Check the fuel flow, Tucker said. Emily cracked the carburetor drain screw. Fuel dribbled out. That was good. The fuel was getting through. She kicked again. This time the engine coughed. Almost. So close. Give it choke, Danny suggested. Emily pulled the choke lever all the way out and kicked with everything she had. The engine turned, coughed, sputtered, and then the Harley roared to life. The sound was incredible, raw, powerful, unmistakable. It was the sound of a shovelhead engine, that distinctive potato, potato, potato rhythm that couldn't be mistaken for anything else. The entire tin building seemed to vibrate with it. Emily stared at the running motorcycle in complete shock. It's running. Oh my God, it's actually running. Told you it would work, Danny said, grinning. But the celebration was cut short by the sound of vehicles approaching. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. They're back, Tucker said grimly. With that warrant. Emily looked at the Harley still idling roughly, but running. Is it ready to ride? No way to know though except to try, Tucker said. But Emily, this thing hasn't been on the road in 6 years. No telling how it'll handle. Could fall apart on you. Better than what happens if I stay here. Emily threw her leg over the Harley, feeling the engine's vibration through her entire body. It felt alive, angry, ready. Danny ran to the bay door and looked out. 3 vehicles, 6 cops. They're spreading out around the perimeter. There's a gap in the back fence, Tucker said quickly. 40 yards east of here, there's a hole big enough for the bike. Cut through there, you'll hit the desert access road. From there, you can get to Highway 50. Tucker, they'll arrest you for helping me. Let me worry about that. You just ride like hell and don't look back. Tucker grabbed her shoulder, his grip surprisingly strong. You got steel in you, girl. Don't let anybody tell you different. Emily felt tears stinging her eyes. Thank you for everything. Thank your motorcycle. Now, go. Emily twisted the throttle. The Harley's engine screamed. Then she dumped the clutch and shot out of the bay like a bullet. The cops shouted behind her. Someone yelled, "Stop!" Another voice screamed, "She's got a motorcycle." But Emily was already moving the Harley, wobbling underneath her on tires that were too old and suspension that was too worn, but it was holding together. She could see the gap in the fence ahead. It looked impossibly small. If she misjudged by even a foot, she'd crash into chain link at 30 miles an hour. Don't think, she told herself. Just ride. She aimed for the bow and gunned it. The Harley shot through the fence with inches to spare on both sides. Metal scraped against metal, sparks flew, and then she was through, blasting into the open desert. Behind her, the cops were scrambling for their vehicles, but they'd have to drive around the entire salvage yard to get to the access road. She had maybe a 2-minute head start. The Harley's speedometer was broken, but Emily guessed she was doing about 50 on the rough desert road. The engine was running hot, really hot, and strange noises were coming from the transmission. But it was running. That's all that mattered. She hit Highway 50 and opened the throttle all the way. The Harley responded like it had been waiting 6 years for this exact moment. 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. The engine screamed, the wind tore at her clothes, and for the first time since her father died, Emily Carter felt free. But the freedom lasted exactly 7 miles. The Harley's engine started missing, badly. Pop, pop, bang, pop. Emily's mechanic brain immediately diagnosed the problem. The carburetor was running too lean. The old jets weren't calibrated right. She needed to stop and adjust it, but stopping meant getting caught. So she kept riding, praying the engine would hold together just a little bit longer. Then the temperature gauge, the one thing on the dashboard that still worked, climbed into the red zone. The engine was overheating, severely. "No, no, no," Emily chanted. "Come on, baby. Just a little farther." The engine made a terrible grinding sound, lost power, and seized. Emily coasted to the side of the highway as the Harley shuddered to a complete stop. She was in the middle of nowhere. No buildings, no other vehicles. Just empty Nevada desert stretching to the horizon in every direction. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She'd been so close. Then she saw headlights in the distance behind her. Multiple sets, moving fast. The cops had found her. Emily's mind raced through her options. Run into the desert on foot. They'd track her with spotlights. Try to hide. There was nowhere to hide. Fight. She was one exhausted girl with a wrench against armed deputies. She was caught. It was over. But then she noticed something. The engine wasn't completely seized. It was just heat-locked. If she could cool it down quickly, it might free up again. It was a long shot. An insane long shot. But it was the only shot she had. Emily grabbed her water bottle, the one Tucker had given her, and poured the entire thing over the engine's cylinder heads. Steam erupted in a massive cloud. The metal made angry ticking sounds as it contracted. Emily waited exactly 30 seconds, counting in her head, then kicked the starter. The engine turned over slightly, just a fraction, but it moved. The headlights were getting closer. Maybe a mile away now. Emily kicked again, harder. The engine rotated farther, almost free. "Please," she whispered. "Please, please, please." She kicked with everything she had and the engine broke free. She hit the ignition switch, the starter motor cranked, and the Harley fired back to life, sounding even angrier than before. Emily didn't waste time celebrating. She jammed the bike into gear and twisted the throttle. The Harley launched forward just as the first police vehicle pulled up to where she'd been stopped 10 seconds earlier. But now she had a problem. The engine was damaged, really damaged. It was making noises that no engine should make, and power was dropping fast. She might have 5 miles left in it, maybe 10 if she was lucky. She needed help. But who could possibly help her now? The answer came in the form of a road sign glowing in her headlight. "Last chance gas, 6 miles." Emily aimed for it and prayed the Harley would make it. The Last Chance gas station looked like it had been abandoned sometime during the Carter administration. One pump, one flickering light, one building that might have been a garage at some point. Emily coasted into the lot on momentum alone as the Harley's engine finally died for good. This time it wasn't coming back. She climbed off the motorcycle and stared at it. 2 days ago it had been a rusted paperweight. For a few glorious minutes tonight it had been freedom. Now it was dead again, and the cops were maybe 3 minutes behind her. You tried, she told the Harley quietly. You really tried. Thank you. Then she heard a sound that made her blood freeze. Motorcycles, lots of them, coming from the north, getting louder. Emily looked around frantically for a place to hide, but there was nowhere to go. She was trapped between the police behind her and unknown riders ahead of her. The sound grew deafening, and then they appeared. Dozens of motorcycles crested the hill, their headlights turning night into day. They weren't just riding, they were moving in formation tight and precise. And every single bike was a Harley. They pulled into the gas station lot surrounding Emily in a circle of chrome and leather. She counted them, quickly had to be at least 60 bikes. Maybe more. And every rider wore the same thing on their back. A leather vest with wings and a skull. The Hells Angels. Emily's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break her ribs. She'd heard stories about the Angels her whole life. Everyone had. They were the most famous motorcycle club in the world. And the most dangerous. One rider dismounted and walked toward her. He was massive, easily 6'4", and built like a mountain. His beard was steel gray, his eyes were hard, and his vest had more patches than Emily could count. That's your bike? His voice sounded like gravel in a blender. Emily could barely speak. Yes. Where'd you get it? I bought it 2 days ago from Tucker's salvage yard. The big man walked past her to the Harley. He knelt beside it, examining it closely. Then his entire body went rigid. Everybody, he shouted, kill your engines now. 60 motorcycles shut down simultaneously. The sudden silence was deafening. The big man was staring at something on the Harley's engine case. Emily couldn't see what it was, just a patch where she'd cleaned off rust and oil. Where did you say you got this motorcycle? His voice had changed completely. It wasn't threatening anymore. It was shocked. Tucker's salvage yard. It had been sitting there for 6 years. He sold it to me for $55. Why, what's wrong? The man stood up slowly. In the darkness, Emily could see his face had gone pale. This motorcycle belonged to my brother, he said quietly. Jace Hayes. He was killed 6 years ago in Arizona. We've been looking for this bike ever since. It disappeared the night he died. Emily felt like the ground had dropped out from underneath her. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I just needed a bike to run away from someone, the man finished. He pointed at her face. Those bruises fresh. Emily nodded, unable to speak. The man studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to his riders. Brothers, this girl just rode my dead brother's motorcycle into our path. After 6 years, Jace's shovelhead came back to us. That ain't coincidence. That's the universe talking. Another rider called out, Grizzly, we got cops incoming. 3 units, maybe 2 minutes out. The big man Grizzly looked at Emily. Those cops chasing you? Yes, my stepfather reported me as a runaway, but it's not what it sounds like. He was beating me. I fought back. I ran, that's all. That's all, huh? Grizzly's expression was unreadable. Then he called out, Brothers, what do we do when we see a sister in trouble? 60 voices answered as one. We stand. And what do we do when the law comes for someone who don't deserve it? We stand. Grizzly turned back to Emily. What's your name? Emily Carter. Well, Emily Carter, you just bought yourself about 100 bodyguards. Anybody want to take you away from here is going to have to go through all of us first. He stuck out his hand. Griffin Hayes. They call me Grizzly. Welcome to the family. Emily stared at his hand, unable to process what was happening. This morning, she'd been a runaway with a dead motorcycle and no options. Now the Hells Angels were offering protection. I don't understand, she whispered. You don't need to understand. You just need to trust us. Do you trust us? Emily looked at the circle of bikers around her. Every single one of them was watching her, waiting for her answer. These were outlaws, criminals according to the law, dangerous men who lived outside society's rules. But when she looked in Grizzly's eyes, she saw something she recognized. Family. Yes, she said, I trust you. The police vehicles arrived 30 seconds later, and what they found was Emily standing in the center of 100 Hells Angels who had absolutely no intention of moving. The police vehicles skidded to a stop, throwing gravel and dust across the gas station lot. Deputy Marcus Carter stepped out first, his hand already on his weapon. The other 5 officers followed, spreading out in a tactical formation that looked impressive until they saw what they were facing. 100 Hell's Angels standing completely still, watching them with eyes that had seen everything and feared nothing. Marcus's confidence evaporated like water on hot pavement. "We're here for the girl," he called out, his voice trying for authority but landing somewhere around nervous. "Emily Carter, step away from the motorcycles and come here. Now." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence was more threatening than any weapon. Grizzly took one step forward. Just one. But the menace in that single movement made Marcus take an involuntary step backward. "You got a warrant." Grizzly's voice was conversational, almost friendly, which somehow made it more terrifying. "We don't need a warrant. She's a runaway minor." "She's 19, Grizzly interrupted. "That ain't a minor. Try again." Marcus's face reddened. "Her legal guardian filed a missing persons report. We have authority to bring her in for questioning." "Questioning about what?" Another angel spoke up, a woman in her 40s with a scar across her cheek. "About defending herself from a man who beat her. That ain't a crime. That's survival. You don't know the situation." "We know exactly the situation," the woman said coldly. "We've all seen those bruises before. We know what they mean." Emily stood frozen behind Grizzly, her mind struggling to process what was happening. These people didn't know her. They had no reason to protect her. Yet here they were standing between her and the law like a human wall. "Look," Marcus said, switching tactics. "Nobody needs to get arrested here. Just let us talk to the girl. 5 minutes. That's all." "And then what?" Grizzly asked. "You take her back to the man who did that to her face." "That's not. We have procedures." "Procedures?" Grizzly spat the word like it tasted bad. "Yeah, we know about procedures. Procedures that send women back to violent homes because the paperwork says so. Procedures that protect the abuser because he knows the right people. Your cousin Ray, for instance." Marcus's expression went rigid. "That's got nothing to do with this." "It's got everything to do with this. You think we're stupid? You think we don't know you're related to the man who hurt her?" Grizzly's voice got quieter, which made it more dangerous. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get back in those vehicles. You're going to drive away, and you're going to forget you saw anything here tonight." "I can't do that." "Then we got a problem." The tension was so thick, Emily felt like she couldn't breathe. One wrong word, one wrong movement, and this would explode into passions. She could see it in the way the officers' hands hovered near their weapons. Could see it in the way the angels had positioned themselves for maximum tactical advantage. "Grizzly," she said quietly, "don't. This isn't worth—" "Ain't your call," Grizzly said without turning around. "This is family business now." One of the other deputies, younger and clearly more scared than Marcus, leaned toward his superior and whispered something. Marcus's face went even redder, but he nodded slowly. "Fine," Marcus said through gritted teeth. "But this isn't over. That girl is wanted for questioning, and sooner or later—" "Later is later," Grizzly said. "Right now is right now, and right now you're leaving." Marcus stared at Grizzly for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. Then he looked past him to Emily. "Your stepfather wants you home, Emily. He's worried about you. Whatever you think happened." "Whatever I think happened," Emily's voice cracked. "I didn't think anything. I know. I know because I was there when he put these bruises on my face. I know because I've been living with his fists for 8 years. I know because last night I had to choose between defending myself and dying." "That's not what he says." "Of course that's not what he says." Emily's fear was transforming into rage. Abusers never tell the truth. They lie and they manipulate, and they convince people like you that the victim is the problem. Marcus's jaw tightened. "This is exactly why we need to bring you in. You're clearly unstable." "Unstable?" Emily took a step forward, and Grizzly had to put his arm out to stop her. "I survived 8 years of hell. I rebuilt a dead motorcycle in 2 days with nothing but hand tools and determination. I escaped from a man who wanted to kill me. That's not unstable. That's the strongest I've ever been in my life." For just a second, something flickered in Marcus's expression. Doubt, maybe, or recognition. But then it was gone, replaced by the hard mask of authority. "Last chance," Marcus said to Grizzly. "Let us take her, or we're calling for backup." "Call whoever you want," Grizzly said. "We'll wait." Marcus pulled out his radio, but before he could speak, a voice crackled through. All units, we've got a multi-vehicle accident on Highway 50-mile marker 74. Need all available units. Repeat all available units. Marcus stared at the radio, then at Grizzly, then at Emily. The calculation was obvious on his face: stay here and face down 100 bikers while other cops needed help or leave and deal with this mess later. This isn't over, he said finally. Then to his officers, mount up, we've got a call. The police vehicles pulled out, leaving nothing but dust and the lingering stink of confrontation. The moment they were gone, Emily's knees buckled. Grizzly caught her before she hit the ground. Easy now, he said. You're safe. They're gone. For how long? Emily's voice was shaking. They'll come back. They'll bring more cops. They'll have to find you first. Grizzly helped her to her feet. And by the time they figure out where to look, you'll be somewhere they can't touch you. Where can they possibly go that Ray won't find me? Grizzly looked at the circle of angels around them. Brothers, what do we say? The response came like thunder. Oakland? Oakland? Oakland. What's in Oakland? Emily asked. Our main charter, Grizzly said. Our home, our fortress. You come with us, you disappear into a community of 500 brothers and sisters who know how to protect their own. I'm not one of you. I'm nobody. You rode my brother's motorcycle, Grizzly said quietly. After 6 years of that bike being lost, it found its way to you. And you brought it back to life. That makes you something, Emily. Maybe you don't know what yet, but we do. Emily looked at the dead Harley still sitting where she'd abandoned it. The bike's destroyed. I killed it trying to escape. Bikes can be fixed, Grizzly said. The question is, can you? Emily didn't have an answer for that, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty: staying here meant going back to Ray. And going back to Ray meant dying one way or another. Okay, she whispered. Oakland. Grizzly smiled for the first time. It transformed his entire face. Good. Here's how this works. He was interrupted by the sound of a vehicle approaching. Fast. Everyone tensed, hands moving toward weapons. But this wasn't a cop car. It was a battered pickup truck Emily recognized immediately. Tucker's truck. The old man climbed out, followed by Danny. Both of them looked like they'd been through a war. Emily. Danny ran toward her. Thank God you're alive. We saw the cops heading this way and thought, what the hell happened to you two? Grizzly asked, taking in their roughed-up appearances. The deputies came back after Emily left, Tucker said. Tore apart my whole yard looking for evidence she'd been there. Found her tools, her backpack, took everything. Then Marcus got aggressive, said I was obstructing justice. Things got physical. He hit you. Emily stared at the bruise forming on Tucker's cheek. Tried to. I'm tougher than I look. Tucker's expression was grim. But they arrested me on some trumped-up charges. Took me to the station, threw me in a holding cell. Danny here broke me out. You what? Emily turned to Danny. Danny looked embarrassed. I didn't break him out exactly. My uncle's a bail bondsman. He owed my mom a favor. We got Tucker released within an hour. But the point is, they're not playing around. They're coming for you hard, Emily. That's why she's coming with us, Grizzly said. To Oakland. Tucker studied Grizzly for a long moment. You're Hell's Angels. That's right. And you're offering to protect a girl you just met. We're offering to protect the girl who brought my brother's motorcycle back to life, Grizzly corrected. There's a difference. Tucker looked at Emily. It's your choice, girl. But if you're asking my opinion, these men are offering you something I can't. Safety, real safety. Take it. Tucker, I can't just leave you with all this. Yes, you can. This mess ain't your fault. It's Ray's and Marcus's, and a system that protects the wrong people. Tucker pulled an envelope from his pocket and handed it to her. This is $500. It's all the cash I've got hidden in the shop. Take it. Start over somewhere Ray can't find you. Emily stared at the envelope. I can't take your money. It ain't charity, it's payment for showing this old cynic that some things are worth fighting for. Tucker gripped her shoulder. You got something special in you, Emily. Something that don't quit. Don't waste it dying in Nevada. Emily's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. Thank you. For everything. Don't thank me. Just survive. That's all the thanks I need. Tucker turned to Grizzly. You keep her safe. On my brother's memory, Grizzly said solemnly. Danny stepped forward, pressing something into Emily's hand. It was a small metal cross on a chain. This was my dad's. He wore it when he rode. Maybe it'll bring you luck. Emily clutched the cross, unable to speak. These people strangers 72 hours ago had given her more than her own family ever had. All right, Grizzly said. We need to move. Emily, you're riding with me until we can get you your own bike. Load up Jace's Harley into the trailer. We're taking it with us. Wait, Emily said. The bike's dead. The engine seized again. Even if you get it to Oakland, it'll take weeks to fix properly. Then we'll spend weeks fixing it. That bike's coming home, Emily. And so are you. Four angels loaded the Harley onto a trailer with a gentleness that surprised Emily. They treated it like it was made of glass, not rust and broken dreams. Within minutes, the convoy was ready to move. Emily climbed onto the back of Grizzly's bike, a massive black and chrome Road King that made her stolen shovelhead look like a toy. As she wrapped her arms around his waist, she looked back at Tucker and Danny one last time. Tucker raised his hand in a silent salute. Danny did the same. Then they were gone, disappearing into the Nevada night. Hold on tight, Grizzly said. It's a long ride to Oakland. The convoy pulled out 100 motorcycles moving as one organism. Emily had never been on a bike this powerful before. The acceleration pressed her back against Grizzly's leather-clad shoulders. The wind screamed in her ears, and somewhere deep in her chest, beneath the fear and pain and exhaustion, something began to unfold. Hope. They rode through the night, stopping only twice for gas. At the second stop, somewhere in the mountains west of Reno, Grizzly bought Emily coffee and a sandwich that she wolfed down without tasting. You doing okay back there? He asked. I think so. Everything's happening so fast, I can't process it all. Then don't. Just breathe. Just exist. Processing can come later. Grizzly studied her face. Those bruises are getting worse. How's your vision? Blurry in my left eye, but I'm fine. You're not fine. Nobody who's been through what you have is fine, but you're tough. I can see that. He paused. Can I ask you something? Why'd you run? Most people in your situation just take it. Just accept it. What made you different? Emily thought about that while sipping the terrible gas station coffee. My father, before he died, he told me something. Said I had to promise him that no matter what happened, I'd never let anyone make me small. That I'd fight. That I'd survive. She met Grizzly's eyes. I almost broke that promise 100 times over the years. But yesterday when Ray came at me with that look in his eyes, the one that said this time he was going to kill me, I heard my dad's voice, and I fought back. Grizzly nodded slowly. Your father was a smart man. He knew something important. What's that? That survival is an act of rebellion. Every day you wake up and choose to keep going, you're spitting in the face of everyone who wants you to quit. You're a rebel, Emily Carter. Even if you don't know it yet. Is that why you helped me? Because I'm a rebel? I helped you because you brought my brother's bike back to life. But I'm keeping you because I see something in you that reminds me of Jace. Grizzly's voice went rough with emotion. He was a fighter too, never quit, never backed down, even when it got him killed. What happened to him? Later, when we're home, when you're safe, right now we ride. They reached Oakland just as the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed impossible after the darkness of the night. The Hells Angels compound sat in an industrial area that looked like it had been forgotten by the rest of the city. High walls, heavy gates, security cameras. It looked more like a fortress than a clubhouse, which Emily realized was exactly the point. The gates opened as they approached, and the convoy rolled inside. Emily had never seen so many motorcycles in one place, hundreds of them, all Harleys, all perfectly maintained. The courtyard was surrounded by buildings that looked like they'd been there since the 1960s. Welcome to Oakland, Grizzly said as he killed his engine. Welcome home. Emily climbed off the bike on shaking legs. She'd been riding for nearly 7 hours straight, and every part of her body hurt. But it was a different kind of hurt than the pain Ray had given her. This was the hurt of survival, of escape, of freedom. Angels were pouring out of the buildings, drawn by the sound of the convoy. Women and men, young and old, all wearing the same patch on their backs. They surrounded the returned riders, greeting them with hugs and handshakes and the kind of easy familiarity that comes from real family. Then someone noticed Emily. Who's the civilian? A woman asked. She was maybe 50, built like a tank with gray hair pulled back in a tight braid. This is Emily Carter, Grizzly announced to the growing crowd. She's the one who brought Jace's bike back. The effect was instantaneous. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. People pushed forward to see the trailer, to see the rusted Harley that had been missing for 6 years. Holy shit, someone breathed. It's really his bike. The serial numbers match. Where did she find it? Another voice asked. She didn't find it, Grizzly said. It found her. Emily bought this bike for $55 in a Nevada salvage yard. Rebuilt the engine in 2 days. Rode it until it died trying to escape from the cops and a violent stepfather. And when it died right in front of our convoy. If that ain't fate, I don't know what is. The crowd was staring at Emily now with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion to something that might have been respect. She rebuilt a shovel head in 2 days. The woman with the braids sounded skeptical. Ask Danny, Grizzly said. He helped her. Kid said she's got skills he's never seen before. Skills don't mean trust, someone else said. She's a civilian. She don't belong here. She belongs here because I say she belongs here. Grizzly's voice cut through the murmurs like a knife. She brought my brother's bike home. That earns her a chance, and anyone who's got a problem with that can take it up with me. Directly. Nobody took him up on that offer. The woman with the braids stepped forward, studying Emily with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I'm Maggie. I run the garage here. Grizzly says you can wrench? That true? Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. Makes me feel old. Maggie walked around Emily, slowly evaluating. You look like hell. When's the last time you slept? 2 days ago, maybe. I'm not sure anymore. And you rode for 7 hours like that? You're either stupid or tough, maybe both. Maggie looked at Grizzly. She can stay, but she works. Nobody freeloads in my garage. Agreed, Grizzly said. I'll work, Emily said quickly. Whatever you need, I'll earn my keep. Damn right you will. Maggie's expression softened slightly. But first you're getting medical attention for those injuries, and then you're sleeping for about 12 hours. You're no good to anyone dead on your feet. A younger woman stepped forward, mid-20s, with bright red hair and an eyebrow piercing. I'll take her to the med room. Come on, honey, let's get you patched up. Emily followed the woman into one of the buildings, her legs moving on autopilot. The inside was cleaner and more organized than she'd expected, like someone had crossed a motorcycle clubhouse with a military barracks. Pictures of bikes and riders covered the walls. Trophies and plaques commemorated rides and events going back decades. The med room was small but well-equipped. The red-haired woman introduced herself as Spider. Don't ask about the nickname, and proceeded to examine Emily's injuries with surprising gentleness. Okay, so the good news is nothing's broken, Spider said after several minutes. The bad news is you've got a concussion, cracked ribs, and enough bruising that you're going to look like a Dalmatian for the next month. How long was he hitting you? 8 years. Spider's hand stilled. 8 years, Jesus Christ, Emily. It wasn't always that bad. He started slow, just grabbing too hard, pushing. Then it escalated. By the time I realized how bad it was, I felt trapped. No money, no car, nowhere to go. Everyone in town knew him. Nobody would have believed me. I believe you, Spider said quietly. We all do. You're safe here. I know that probably doesn't feel real yet, but it will. She applied antibiotic ointment to the cuts on Emily's face and wrapped her ribs tightly. Then she handed Emily a bottle of painkillers. Take 2 now, 2 in 6 hours. They'll help with the pain and the swelling. And Emily, Spider waited until Emily met her eyes. You did good. Getting out, fighting back, surviving. That took guts. Or desperation. Sometimes they're the same thing. Spider led Emily to a small room on the 2nd floor. It was barely bigger than a closet, just a twin bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the courtyard. But it had a lock on the door that opened from the inside. A lock that Emily controlled. This is yours, Spider said, for as long as you need it. There's clothes in the dresser. They'll be too big, but they're clean. Bathrooms down the hall. Any questions? Emily shook her head, unable to trust her voice. Get some sleep. Someone will wake you for dinner. If you need anything before then, just ask anyone. We take care of each other here. Spider left, closing the door quietly. Emily stood in the center of the small room, trying to make sense of everything that had happened in the last 72 hours. 3 days ago, she'd been a prisoner in a Nevada trailer with no hope and no future. Now she was standing in a Hells Angels compound in Oakland with a room of her own and people willing to protect her. She walked to the window and looked down at the courtyard. The trailer with Jace's Harley was still there, surrounded by a crowd of angels examining the bike with reverence. She watched as they carefully unloaded it, carrying it toward the garage like pallbearers with a coffin. That bike had saved her life. That rusted, broken, impossible machine had carried her away from hell and delivered her to something she'd never expected to find. Family. Emily pulled Danny's father's cross from her pocket, holding it up to catch the morning light. She wasn't particularly religious, hadn't been since her real father died, but she sent up a prayer anyway to whoever might be listening. Thank you for the bike, for Tucker and Danny, for Grizzly and these angels, for this chance. I don't know what I did to deserve it, but I swear I won't waste it. I swear I'll make something of myself. I swear. Her voice broke. She was too exhausted to cry, but the emotion was there trapped in her chest like a scream. Emily collapsed onto the bed without bothering to undress. The mattress was lumpy, and the pillow smelled like motorcycle oil, but it was hers. This bed, this room, this chance. She fell asleep within seconds, the cross still clutched in her hand, and for the first time in 8 years, she slept without fear. Because for the first time in 8 years, she was somewhere the monsters couldn't reach her. Emily woke to someone pounding on her door. For one terrifying second, she thought it was Ray, and her body went rigid with panic. Then she remembered where she was. Oakland, the compound, safe. Emily, you've been asleep for 16 hours. Maggie says, get your ass to the garage. Spider's voice came through the door. 16 hours, Emily sat up too fast and immediately regretted it. Her ribs screamed in protest and her head felt like someone had stuffed it with cotton. But she was alive. She was safe. I'm coming, she called back. She found clothes in the dresser, like Spider had promised jeans that were 3 sizes too big, and a t-shirt that hung on her like a tent. She rolled the sleeves and cuffed the jeans and looked at herself in the small mirror. The bruises on her face had turned spectacular shades of purple and yellow. Her left eye was still swollen. She looked like she'd gone 10 rounds with a prize fighter and lost, but she was standing, and she had work to do. The garage was a massive building that smelled like oil, metal, and possibility. Motorcycles in various states of repair filled every bay. Tools hung organized on walls. Parts were labeled and sorted with military precision. And in the center of it all, on a lift, sat Jace's Harley. Maggie stood beside it, arms crossed, examining the engine with a critical eye. When Emily approached, the older woman didn't even look up. Tell me what's wrong with it, Maggie said. Emily walked around the bike slowly, her mechanic's brain cataloging damage. Seized engine from overheating. Probably warped the cylinder heads. The carburetor's running lean, needs new jets. Transmission's grinding bearings are shot. Fork seals are blown, chains stretched. Tires are rotted. Electrical systems barely holding together. She paused. And there's something else. Something I couldn't figure out when I was working on it. What? The frame geometry's off, just slightly. Like it was in an accident and never straightened properly. It affects the handling. Maggie finally looked at Emily, her expression unreadable. You can see frame damage just by looking. My father taught me. He said a frame is like a skeleton. If the bones aren't straight, nothing else matters. Your father was right. Maggie walked to the bike's front end and pointed at a subtle bend in the frame. Jace crashed this bike 3 months before he died, hit a pothole at 70 miles an hour, bent the frame right here. We told him to replace it, but he was stubborn, said the bike rode fine. It didn't, Emily said quietly. He probably fought it every time he took a turn. Yeah, he did. Maggie studied Emily for a long moment. You've got good eyes, better than most mechanics I know. Think you can fix it? All of it, that's weeks of work. Maybe months. I didn't ask how long, I asked if you can do it. Emily looked at the broken Harley, the bike that had saved her life and brought her here. Yes, I can fix it. Good, because Grizzly wants it perfect. Not just running, perfect, like it was the day Jace bought it. Maggie handed Emily a ring of keys. These open the tool cabinets. Anything you need, you take. Anything you break, you replace. Understood? Yes. And Emily, Maggie's voice softened slightly, don't make me regret trusting you. Emily spent the next 3 days tearing the Harley down to its frame. Every bolt, every component, Every piece of the puzzle laid out and cataloged. Other angels would drift through the garage, watching her work with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. On the fourth day, a massive biker named Tiny, who was anything but stopped to watch her measuring the frame with a precision straight edge. "What you doing?" His voice was surprisingly high-pitched for someone his size. "Checking frame alignment. It's bent 3.2 millimeters out of true. Doesn't sound like much, but at speed, it'll make the bike unstable." "Can you fix that?" "I can try. Need a frame jig and a hydraulic press." "You have those, oi. We got everything." Tiny paused. "Grizzly says you rebuilt this engine in 2 days." "I did. Barely. It only ran for about 20 miles before it died." 20 miles is 20 miles more than it ran in 6 years. Tiny sat down on a stool that creaked under his weight. "Can I ask you something? Why'd you fight so hard to fix a bike you didn't even know was important?" Emily stopped working and looked at him. "Because it was all I had. That bike was the difference between escape and death. So I made it run. I didn't have a choice." "Everybody's got a choice." "No, they don't. Not really. When you're trapped, when someone's hurting you, when every door is locked and every window is barred, there's no choice. There's only survival. And that bike was my only shot at surviving." Tiny was quiet for a moment. "My old lady, my wife, she was in a situation like yours once, before I met her. Her ex used to beat her so bad she couldn't work, couldn't think, couldn't breathe without permission." His voice went rough. "She tried to leave 3 times. He found her every time. Brought her back, hurt her worse each time. Until one day she didn't run. She fought, put him in the hospital, and while he was recovering, she disappeared. Changed her name, changed her life. That was 15 years ago." "Does he still look for her?" "Every day probably, but he won't find her. Because she's got 300 brothers and sisters who'll kill anyone who tries to hurt her again." Tiny met Emily's eyes. "You're part of that now. You understand you're not alone anymore." Emily felt something crack in her chest. "I don't know how to be part of a family. I forgot what that feels like." "You'll remember. Takes time, but you'll remember." Tiny stood up. "You need help straightening that frame, you let me know." "I've done it before, Duck." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just fix the bike. Jace was my best friend. I want to hear his Harley sing one more time." By the end of the first week, Emily had proven herself in ways that words never could. She diagnosed a fueling problem on Spider's Sportster that 3 other mechanics had missed. She rebuilt a transmission for Tiny that everyone else had declared dead. She fabricated a custom bracket for Maggie's bike that worked better than the factory part. Word spread through the compound the new girl could fix anything. But it was what happened on day 8 that changed everything. Emily was working late in the garage alone, straightening Jace's frame with painstaking precision. The hydraulic press creaked as it applied pressure to the bent metal. Too much force and the frame would crack. Too little and it wouldn't move. She was right on the edge of that balance when she heard footsteps. Grizzly walked into the garage carrying 2 beers. He handed one to Emily without asking if she wanted it. "How's it coming?" he asked. "Slow. The frame's fighting me, but I'll get it straight." "I know you will." Grizzly leaned against a workbench. "I wanted to talk to you about something. About my brother. About how he died." Emily stopped working and turned to face him. Jace was riding through Arizona. Grizzly began, his voice carefully controlled. "Heading back from a run. Solo. He liked to ride alone sometimes," said it cleared his head. "He stopped at a truck stop for gas, and that's where they grabbed him." "Who?" "Cartel. Mexican syndicate moving drugs through the Southwest." Jace saw something he shouldn't have seen. A transaction going down. Money changing hands. He tried to just leave, but they couldn't risk him talking. Grizzly's jaw tightened. They tortured him for information. Wanted to know who he was, who he rode with, what he knew. Jace didn't tell him shit. Not his name, not his club, nothing. They beat him for 3 days and he never broke. Emily felt sick. "How do you know?" "Because they recorded it, sent the video to us at a warning, wanted us to know what happens when you cross them." Grizzly's voice was barely above a whisper. "I watched my little brother die on a grainy cell phone video, and there was nothing I could do about it." "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry, just understand something. That bike you're fixing, it disappeared the night Jace died. The cartel took it. We figured they stripped it for parts or dumped it. We looked for 6 years and found nothing. Then you show up riding it. Do you understand what that means? That I got lucky. That fate put Jace's bike in your hands for a reason. That maybe, just maybe, there's something we're supposed to find. Grizzly pulled something from his pocket, a photograph. This is Jace, 3 weeks before he died. The man in the photo looked like a younger version of Grizzly. Same build, same eyes, same intensity. He was standing next to the Harley, grinning at the camera with the kind of joy that couldn't be faked. He loved that bike more than anything, Grizzly said. More than money, more than women, more than his own safety. That shovelhead was his freedom, just like it became yours. Emily stared at the photograph. What do you want me to do? Fix it, make it perfect. And if you find anything at all that tells us more about what happened to him, you tell me immediately. Understood? Yes. Grizzly drained his beer and set the empty bottle down. One more thing. We got word from Nevada. Ray's making noise. Filed a federal missing persons report. Got the FBI involved. They're looking for you. Emily's heart stopped. The FBI? He's claiming you kidnapped yourself for ransom or some bullshit story. It won't hold up, but it gives them an excuse to search for you legally. Grizzly's expression hardened. You need to stay inside the compound. Don't go out. Don't talk to anyone outside. We've got lawyers working on it, but until they shut this down, you're vulnerable. I'm trapped again, Emily whispered. No, you're protected. There's a difference. Grizzly put his hand on her shoulder. We won't let them take you. I promise you that. He left Emily alone in the garage with her thoughts and her fears. She turned back to the frame, applying pressure with the press watching the metal slowly bend back to true. It was fighting her every millimeter, but it was moving, changing, healing, just like her. 3 days later, Emily was deep in the Harley's engine, replacing the damaged cylinder heads, when Spider burst into the garage. Emily, we've got a problem. What kind of problem? The kind with badges and warrants. FBI's at the gate. They've got paperwork saying they can search the compound for a missing person. They're coming in. Emily's hands started shaking. What do I do? Maggie says hide, now, come with me. Spider grabbed Emily's arm and pulled her toward the back of the garage. There was a hidden door behind a tool cabinet that led to a network of tunnels beneath the compound. Emily had no idea they existed. These tunnels connect all the buildings, Spider explained, as they ran through narrow passages lit by bare bulbs. Been here since the 60s. We use them to move around without being seen. There's a room at the end that's completely off the books. No windows, no official existence. You'll be safe there, Barfiz. They reached a reinforced door. Spider pulled out a key and unlocked it. Inside was a small room with a cot, some supplies, and a single light bulb. It looked like a prison cell. How long do I have to stay here? Emily asked. As long as it takes for them to leave. Could be hours, could be days. Spider handed her a phone. This is a burner. Only 3 people have the number, me, Maggie, and Grizzly. If you need anything, call. Otherwise, stay quiet and stay hidden. Spider, wait. I'm sorry, Emily. I know this feels like being trapped again, but it's the only way to keep you safe. Spider's expression was genuinely apologetic. I'll bring you food and updates. Just hang tight. The door closed and Emily heard the lock click. She was alone in a concrete box under the earth, hidden from the FBI, hidden from Ray, hidden from the world. Her breathing started to accelerate. The walls felt like they were closing in. This was too much like the trailer. Too much like being locked in her room while Ray drank himself into a rage downstairs. She forced herself to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. This was different. This door locked from the inside if she needed it to. These people were protecting her, not imprisoning her. But it didn't feel different. It felt exactly the same. Emily pulled out the burner phone and stared at it. She could call Spider, could ask to be let out, could risk being found by the FBI, because at least that would be better than suffocating in this concrete tomb. No, she'd survived 8 years with Ray. She could survive a few hours in a safe room. She laid down on the cot and closed her eyes, trying to calm her racing heart. Above her, she could hear muffled voices, footsteps, the FBI searching the compound, looking for her, getting closer. The hours crawled by like wounded animals. Emily counted the cracks in the ceiling, counted her breaths, counted the minutes between sounds above. At some point, she fell into a fitful sleep and dreamed of motorcycles that wouldn't start and doors that wouldn't open. She woke to her phone buzzing, a text from Spider. They're gone. Stay put another hour to be safe. Another hour. Emily could do another hour. She had to. But 15 minutes later, the phone buzzed again. This time it was Grizzly. Come up. Now, we found something. Emily left the safe room and followed the tunnels back to the garage. When she emerged, she found Grizzly, Maggie, Spider, and Tiny gathered around the Harley. They were staring at something small and brass that sat on the workbench. What is that? Emily asked. We don't know, Grizzly said, but it fell out of the handlebars when Maggie was removing them. It was sealed inside the tube. Emily picked up the object. It was a brass cylinder about 4 inches long and an inch in diameter, sealed with what looked like wax at both ends. It was old. Really old. Should we open it? Maggie asked. Hell yes, we should open it, Tiny said. Grizzly looked at Emily. You found it. You open it. Emily's hands were steady as she carefully broke the wax seal and unscrewed the end cap. Inside was a piece of paper rolled tight and protected from moisture. She pulled it out and unrolled it slowly. It wasn't just paper, it was a ledger. Dozens of names, dates, locations, and amounts, all in tiny, precise handwriting, and at the top written in red ink, insurance. What the hell is this? Spider breathed. Grizzly took the paper and read through it, his face going progressively darker. These are cartel routes, drug shipments, money drops, and look at this section here. These are names, officials, cops, border patrol, all on the cartel payroll. Jace was documenting their operation, Maggie said. He saw something, and instead of running, he recorded it. That's why they killed him, Emily said quietly. Not because he saw something by accident, because he was gathering evidence. But why hide it in his bike? Tiny asked. Why not send it to us, or the cops, or the FBI? Grizzly stared at the ledger for a long time. Then he said, because he didn't know who to trust. Look at these names. There's a deputy sheriff, a customs agent, 2 DEA officers. Jace couldn't report this through official channels because the official channels were compromised. So he hid it in his handlebars, Spider said, and it's been there for 6 years. Until Emily brought it home, Maggie added. They all looked at the ledger, understanding the weight of what they'd found. This wasn't just evidence of Jace's murder. This was evidence of a massive criminal conspiracy spanning multiple states and involving dozens of corrupt officials. What do we do with it? Emily asked. We finish what Jace started, Grizzly said. We bring these bastards down. That's suicide, Tiny said. The cartel will come for us. All of us. They've got resources we can't match. Then we get resources they can't match. We take this to the FBI, the real FBI, not the local field office that might be compromised, but straight to Washington. We find someone clean and we hand them everything. Grizzly looked around at his family. But I won't make this decision alone. This affects all of us. Everyone in this room gets a vote. Do we expose this and risk war with the cartel? Or do we bury it and let Jace's death go unanswered? Maggie spoke first. We expose it. Jace died for this information. We don't get to waste that. Agreed, Spider said. I'm in, Tiny said. But we do it smart. We make copies. We spread the information around so they can't silence us all at once. They all looked at Emily. What's your vote? Grizzly asked. I'm not a member. I don't get a vote. You found it. You absolutely get a vote. Emily thought about Ray, about 8 years of abuse, about every time someone in authority had turned a blind eye to her suffering because Ray knew the right people, about corrupt systems that protected monsters. We expose it, she said firmly. All of it. These people need to face justice. Grizzly nodded. Then it's unanimous. We move forward, but first we secure this location. Nobody comes in or out without clearance. We trust no one outside this room until we've safely handed this information to someone who can act on it. I know someone, Maggie said. My nephew. He's FBI in Washington. Counterterrorism Division. He's clean. I'd stake my life on it. Then contact him. Carefully, no phones, no emails. We need a face-to-face meeting on neutral ground. Grizzly rolled up the ledger and put it back in the brass cylinder. Until then, this doesn't leave the compound. And Emily Arsaw. Yes, you just became the most important person in this building. Without you, that bike stays broken and this ledger stays hidden. You saved more than your own life when you bought that Harley. You might have saved hundreds of lives." Emily didn't know what to say to that. She just stared at the brass cylinder thinking about Jace, about how he'd died protecting this information, about how she'd unknowingly carried his final mission all the way from Nevada to Oakland. "I'll finish the bike," she said quietly. "I'll make it perfect, like you asked." "I know you will," Grizzly said, "because you're family now, and family doesn't quit." The word hit Emily harder than any punch Ray had ever thrown. Family. She had a family again. A strange, dangerous, loyal family that rode motorcycles and broke rules and stood up for what was right even when it was terrifying. She had a family worth fighting for, and she was going to fight like hell to protect them. Maggie's nephew arrived 3 days later at midnight, driving a rental car with plates from 3 states away. His name was Agent David Chen, and he looked nothing like Emily expected an FBI agent to look. He was young, maybe 30, wearing jeans and a hoodie with tired eyes that said he'd seen too much darkness for someone his age. They met in the compound's main building away from windows. Grizzly, Maggie, Tiny Spider, and Emily sat on one side of the table. Chen sat alone on the other, his expression carefully neutral as he examined the brass cylinder. "Aunt Maggie says you have information about a cartel operation," Chen said, his voice professionally detached. "Before I look at anything, I need to know how you obtained it." "We didn't obtain it," Grizzly said. "It found us. 6 years ago, my brother was murdered by a Mexican syndicate. His motorcycle disappeared. 2 weeks ago, this girl bought that bike in Nevada, rebuilt it, and rode it here. The information was hidden inside the handlebars. We opened it yesterday." Chen's eyes flicked to Emily. "You're the runaway from Nevada, Emily Carter. There's a federal investigation. There's a bullshit investigation started by my abusive stepfather to cover his tracks," Emily interrupted, her voice sharp. "And if you're here to arrest me instead of looking at evidence of actual crimes, then you're wasting everyone's time." Chen studied her for a long moment. Then he said, "Tell me about the abuse." "Why, so you can decide if I'm credible, so I can understand the context. Everything matters in federal investigations, Ms. Carter, including who's bringing me evidence and why." Emily wanted to refuse, wanted to tell him to look at the damn ledger and stop interrogating her. But Maggie caught her eye and gave a slight nod. "Trust him." So Emily talked. About Ray, about 8 years of violence, about the night she fought back and ran, about Tucker and Danny and the $55 Harley that became her escape route, about riding it until it died and the angels finding her, about everything. When she finished, Chen was quiet for a full minute. Then he said, "Your stepfather, Ray Carter, he's cousins with Deputy Marcus Carter, correct?" "Yes. Marcus Carter is mentioned in this ledger." Chen pulled out his phone and showed Emily a photograph. "This is from our organized crime database. Marcus Carter photographed meeting with known cartel associates in 2019. We've had him under surveillance for 3 years, but haven't been able to make charges stick." Emily felt like she'd been punched. "Marcus is working for the cartel." "We believe so. Which means your stepfather filing that federal report might not be about getting you back. It might be about silencing you before you can talk about what you've seen." "I haven't seen anything. I didn't even know about the ledger until 3 days ago." "But they don't know that," Chen said grimly. "From their perspective, you're a loose end who bought a motorcycle that should have stayed lost. They're going to come for you." "Let them try," Grizzly growled. "They'll have to go through all of us." "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." Chen opened the brass cylinder and carefully unrolled the ledger. His eyes moved across the names and numbers, and his expression grew darker with each line. "Jesus Christ, this is bigger than I thought. These aren't just local dealers. These are federal officials, border patrol, customs, even—" He stopped, his face going pale. "Even what?" Maggie asked. "Even someone in my field office. San Francisco. This name here that's a senior agent. He's been with the Bureau for 15 years. Chen looked up at them. "If I take this through official channels, someone will leak it to the cartel within hours. Everyone in this room will be dead by morning." "So what do we do?" Spider asked. "We go dark. I take this information directly to Washington. To my boss's boss. Someone I know is clean, but it'll take time to set up a secure transfer. Maybe a week, maybe 2. Chen looked around the table. "Can you stay hidden that long?" "We can try," Grizzly said. But if the cartel already knows Emily has the bike, they're already planning their move. Then we plan ours first. Chen pulled out a notebook and started writing. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to copy this ledger, make 3 separate copies stored in different secure locations. If something happens to one, the others survive. Then I'm going to build a case file so airtight that even corrupt officials can't bury it. But I need time, and I need all of you to stay alive long enough for me to work. What about Emily? Maggie asked. The federal investigation? I'll handle that. I'll make some calls. Get it reclassified as a domestic abuse situation instead of a missing persons case. It won't make it go away completely, but it'll take the pressure off. Chen looked at Emily. But you need to stay out of sight. No going outside, no phone calls, no social media, nothing that can be traced. I've been staying out of sight my whole life, Emily said bitterly. What's a few more weeks? The meeting ended with Chen leaving the same way he came, quietly in the dark, taking photos of every page of the ledger with a camera that wasn't connected to any network. When he was gone, the room felt heavier. We're at war now, Tiny said quietly, even if we didn't choose it. The cartel knows we have that ledger. They're coming. Then we get ready, Grizzly said. Double the perimeter security. Nobody comes in without being cleared by 3 people. We arm up. We prepare. And we protect our family. Emily felt sick. This is my fault. If I hadn't bought that bike, if you hadn't bought that bike, Jace's murder would never be answered. Grizzly interrupted. You gave us something we thought we'd lost. Hope. Justice. Closure. Don't you dare apologize for that. But as Emily walked back to the garage that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd brought death to the only family she had left. The first attack came 5 days later, just before dawn. Emily was in the garage working on the final details of Jace's Harley. The engine was fully rebuilt. The frame was perfectly straight. The chrome was polished. It was almost ready. Almost perfect. She was adjusting the carburetor when she heard the first explosion. The compound's front gate blew inward with a blast that shook the ground. Emily dropped her tools and ran toward the sound, her heart hammering. Through the garage door, she could see armed men pouring through the destroyed gate. They weren't dressed like police. They weren't dressed like anything official. They were dressed for war. The cartel had found them. Gunfire erupted across the compound. Emily heard someone screaming for everyone to get to defensive positions. She saw Tiny running past with a shotgun, saw Spider dragging someone wounded toward cover. The world had exploded into chaos in seconds. Maggie appeared in the garage doorway, blood running down her face from a cut above her eye. Get to the tunnels now. I can help. You're the target. They're here for you and the bike, go. But before Emily could move, 3 men burst into the garage. They were wearing tactical gear and carrying automatic weapons. The lead man saw Emily and smiled. There she is, he said in accented English, the girl who bought the wrong motorcycle. Emily grabbed the first tool she could reach, a heavy torque wrench, and held it like a weapon. Stay back, the man laughed. What are you going to do with that? Fix me, if I have to. He raised his weapon and Emily knew she was going to die. She'd survived Ray, survived the escape, survived 2 weeks with the Angels. But it was all going to end here in a garage surrounded by the tools that had given her hope. Then Maggie stepped between them, a pistol in her hand. You want her? You go through me first. Old woman, move. Make me. The man's finger tightened on the trigger. Emily screamed. And then Grizzly hit the man from behind like a freight train, slamming him into the concrete floor with bone-crushing force. The other 2 men swung their weapons toward Grizzly, but Tiny appeared and fired both barrels of his shotgun. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Get Emily out of here, Grizzly roared. Maggie, go! Maggie grabbed Emily's arm and dragged her toward the hidden door. Behind them, the sounds of fighting intensified. They ran through the tunnels, Emily's breath coming in ragged gasps. Her ears were ringing from the gunfire. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely run. They reached the safe room and Maggie shoved Emily inside. Stay here. Don't open this door for anyone except me, Grizzly, or Tiny. You understand? Anyone else, you assume they're cartel. Maggie, wait, are you going back out there? Someone's got to. Maggie checked her pistol. This is what family does, Emily. We fight for each other. She left and Emily was alone again in the concrete tomb beneath the compound. Above her, the sounds of war continued. Gunshots, explosions, screaming. She sat on the cot, clutching the torque wrench she'd somehow carried with her, and tried not to imagine everyone she cared about dying. Hours passed, the sounds gradually died down. Emily checked her phone, still had the burner Spider had given her. But nobody had texted, nobody had called. The silence was worse than the noise had been. Then her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "We know you're down there. Come out or we start executing them one by one." Emily's blood turned to ice. It was a trap. Had to be. But what if it wasn't? What if they really had captured Grizzly or Maggie or Spider or Tiny? Another text, "You have 5 minutes." Then the first one dies. Emily stared at the phone, her mind racing. She could stay hidden, could wait for help, could survive while her family died for her. Or she could face this, could trade herself for them, could finally stop running. She thought about her father, about what he'd said before he died. Never let anyone make you small. Fight, survive. But he'd never said anything about letting other people die for you. Emily opened the door and climbed toward the surface, the torque wrench gripped tight in her hand. If she was going to die, she was going to die fighting. She emerged into the garage to find it destroyed. Tools were scattered everywhere. Equipment was overturned. And in the center, surrounded by armed men, were Grizzly, Maggie, Tiny, and Spider. They were on their knees, hands behind their heads, bleeding and bruised but alive. "There she is," a new voice said. Emily turned to see a man in an expensive suit standing near Jace's Harley. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair, and the kind of face that looked like it smiled often, but his eyes were dead. The girl who caused so much trouble. "Let them go," Emily said, her voice steadier than as she felt. "You want me and the bike, fine. Take us, but let them go." "I don't think you're in a position to negotiate." The man walked closer to Emily. "My name is Vargas. I run operations for the syndicate in this region. Your friend Jace, I'm the one who gave the order to kill him." Emily felt rage flood through her veins. "You murdered him for documenting your crimes. I murdered him for being stupid, for thinking he could expose us and survive." Vargas looked at the Harley. "That motorcycle should have been destroyed 6 years ago. The fact that it survived is a testament to our incompetence. The fact that it led you here, that's almost poetic. What do you want?" "The ledger, obviously, and then I want you to disappear permanently." Vargas nodded to one of his men. "Kill the old woman first. Show her we're serious." The man pressed his gun to Maggie's head. Emily screamed. And then something impossible happened. The garage door exploded inward and motorcycles poured through. Dozens of them, angels from every charter in California, summoned by Grizzly's emergency call hours ago. They hit the cartel soldiers like a tidal wave of leather and chrome and righteous fury. The room erupted into absolute chaos. Vargas dove for cover. His men opened fire. The angels scattered and returned fire. Emily grabbed Maggie and pulled her behind an overturned workbench. "You were supposed to stay hidden," Maggie yelled over the gunfire. "You were supposed to survive," Emily yelled back. Grizzly had somehow gotten free and was fighting 3 men at once, with nothing but his bare hands. Tiny had recovered his shotgun and was turning cartel soldiers into memories. Spider was dragging wounded angels to safety. And Emily saw Vargas trying to escape through the back door, saw him abandoning his men to save himself, saw him getting away. She didn't think. She just ran, grabbed a chain from the workbench, and went after him. Vargas heard her coming and turned, pulling a pistol from his jacket. But Emily was faster. She swung the chain and it wrapped around his gun hand. She pulled hard and the pistol went flying. "You killed Jace," Emily said, breathing hard. "You tried to kill my family." "Your family," Vargas laughed. "You're a runaway playing biker. You're nothing. I'm the girl who brought his bike home. I'm the girl who found the evidence. I'm the girl who's going to watch you burn." Emily pulled the chain tighter. "And I'm not nothing. Not anymore." Grizzly appeared behind Vargas and put him in a chokehold that made the older man's eyes bulge. "You're right about one thing," Grizzly said. "She's not nothing. She's family. And we protect family." The fight ended minutes later. The cartel soldiers who weren't dead had surrendered or fled. Vargas was unconscious on the floor, and the compound looked like a war zone. "How many did we lose?" Grizzly asked Tiny. 4 dead, maybe a dozen wounded. Could have been worse. Could have been better. Grizzly looked around at the destruction. We need to call Chen. Now, this just became too big to keep quiet. Already here, Chen's voice called out. He walked into the garage accompanied by a dozen federal agents all wearing FBI vests. We've been monitoring cartel communications. When we heard they were moving on this location, we scrambled a tactical team. Sorry we couldn't get here faster. You got here in time, Grizzly said. That's what matters. Chen looked at Vargas. Is that who I think it is? Miguel Vargas, head of syndicate operations in 5 states. He's yours. And the ledger. Safe. You can have it. All of it. Grizzly looked at Emily. She found it. She nearly died protecting it. And she deserves to see justice done. Chen walked over to Emily and stuck out his hand. Agent David Chen, FBI. You did good, Miss Carter. Really good. That information you found is going to take down one of the largest criminal organizations in North America. Emily shook his hand numbly. I just wanted to escape. I didn't want any of this. Nobody ever does. But you handled it like a warrior. Chen paused. And for what it's worth, the investigation into you has been officially closed. Your stepfather's been arrested on domestic violence charges. Seems several witnesses came forward with evidence he'd been abusing you for years. He's going away for a long time. Emily felt tears stinging her eyes. Ray's arrested. As of 6 hours ago, you're free, Emily, truly free. The weight of those words hit Emily like a physical force. Free. She was free. No more running, no more hiding, no more fear. The monster who'd haunted her dreams for 8 years was in a cage where he belonged. She sat down on the concrete floor and finally let herself cry. Great heaving sobs that came from someplace deep inside where she'd kept all her pain locked away. Maggie sat beside her and pulled her into a hug. Then Spider joined them, then others, until Emily was surrounded by her family, all of them battered and bloody and alive. You did it, Maggie whispered. You survived. We survived, Emily corrected. All of us. That night, after the FBI had taken Vargas and his men away, after the wounded had been treated, and the dead had been honored, Emily returned to the garage. Jace's Harley sat untouched in the center of the room, still perfect despite the chaos around it. She ran her hand along the fuel tank, feeling the smooth paint under her fingers. Thank you, she whispered to the motorcycle, for saving me, for bringing me here, for giving me everything. It ain't finished yet, Grizzly's voice came from behind her. You still need to fire it up, need to hear it run. Now, been waiting 6 years to hear my brother's bike sing again. Think it's time. Emily climbed onto the Harley, her hands finding the controls like they belonged there. She turned the key, pulled in the clutch, hit the ignition. The engine caught on the first try and roared to life with that unmistakable shovelhead rhythm. It sounded perfect, powerful, alive. The sound filled the garage and spilled out into the night, announcing to the world that something dead had come back to life. Grizzly stood listening with his eyes closed, tears running down his face. That's him, he said quietly. That's my brother. I can hear him in that engine. Emily let the motorcycle run for a full minute before shutting it down. When the silence returned, it felt different, heavier, more meaningful. What happens now? Emily asked. Now, Grizzly smiled. Now you become who you were always meant to be. We're making you the compound's head mechanic. Official position, real salary. And this, he pulled out a leather vest. This is yours. Emily stared at the vest. It had the Hells Angels insignia on the back, and stitched below it in perfect letters, Head Wrench, Oakland Charter. I'm not a member, Emily said. I can't wear your colors. You're not a full patch member. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That's got rules we can't break. But you're family, and family gets recognized. Grizzly handed her the vest. Wear it with pride. You earned it. Emily put on the vest and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for her, like she'd always been meant to wear it. There's one more thing, Grizzly said. He walked to the Harley and touched the fuel tank. This bike saved your life, brought you to us, led us to the evidence that got justice for Jace. It's yours now, if you want it. I can't take your brother's bike. You already did. The moment you bought it for $55 in that salvage yard, it became yours. You brought it back to life. You earned it. Grizzly's voice was rough with emotion. Jace would have wanted you to have it. I know that in my bones. Emily looked at the Harley, the rusty paperweight that had become her salvation. Then I'll ride it with honor. I'll take care of it. I'll make sure it never sits dead again. I know you will. Grizzly gripped her shoulder. Welcome to the family, Emily Carter. Welcome home. Standing in that garage wearing a vest that said she belonged with a motorcycle that had saved her life at her side and a family that would die for her surrounding her, Emily, Carter finally understood something her father had tried to tell her years ago. Freedom isn't a place you go, it's something you build, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of courage at a time. She'd bought a rusty Harley for $55 and found her freedom. But more than that, she'd found herself, found her strength, found her family, found her purpose. The girl who'd run from hell had become the woman who'd ride through it, and she was never looking back again.